All right, y'all. Now, check this out, right? We had to react to this. A couple videos ago, y'all remember I had a clip from Candace Owens, and she touched on a little bit of what this video is about, but this I haven't reacted to much because she's been, stuck on the Charlie Kirk thing since it happened. But this episode in particular, I think she dropped this one may have been Wednesday. Very good episode. Immediately starts off talking about 23 and Me. And what's the guy's name? Woody Allen, the old dude that's like 90 something years old. And the relationship that he had with Epstein. And the emails were about the 23 and Me girls. I was now I've talked about this with people as far as submitting your DNA and what's that website? Ancestry.com or something. Isn't it like that? That's another one. I've had these conversations with people and it's something me myself I could never do. Obviously, you know what I'm saying, as no one's finna traffic me. I got a lot of artillery. But um just very interesting how this is obviously linked back to Epstein as far as ways of trafficking. She also gets to going in about Gilgamesh tomb, the invasion of Iraq, the real reason. She has some clips from Rob Skiba, which I was surprised at that. Just overall, a very good episode. But let's react to some of this. I thought it was worth it. Check this out, y'all.
There are so many directions that we could run into with the Epstein emails, but there's something that popped up that is very interesting to me. The 23andMe emails, the elites sending one another kits. Jeffrey Epstein, I'll show you two of them. First and foremost to Woody Allen. Woody Allen, that entire background story that Hollywood just accepts him is absolutely crazy to me. I'm glad that that is being relitigated regarding what he did to his own child when she was 7. But allegedly, I'll say allegedly. But look at this email that Jeffrey Epstein authored to Woody. It says, the 23andMe kits arrived and will be delivered to Woody and Soon Yi to their home today. So I don't know who this actually went to, but he was getting this kit out to Woody Allen. And there's another email, this time to, who is this? They're always blocking out the names, but it says, hi, Sultan, can you please tell me who James Miller is? He is who you have billed the 30 kits to. Also, do I understand the shipping address is Jeffrey's home at 9 East 71st Street? We're talking about 23andMe kits. Do you guys remember that trend, by the way? For some reason, they came out and they told everybody, this is going to be amazing. Don't you want to know where you're from? As if they don't know where we're from. They're the ones that are trafficking people all over the world. We can help you. Just send us your DNA. And a lot of people did it. A lot of my friends did it. I was already like, seems a little suspect. It's a bit suspicious. I'm not going to do it at all. Well, interestingly enough, that particular project, 23andMe, or that particular business, also began shortly following our invasion into Iraq.
Now, isn't that interesting? It began shortly after our invasion to Iraq. Very interesting. In the guise of sending in your DNA so we can know who you truly are. But obviously, I think it goes in with trafficking as well. 30 plus kits of 23andMe. It kind of reminds me of that whole Wayfair deal where, they said it was a glitch and dressers were $17,000 and people was like, nah, these are little ones being trafficked.
I was going to say there was a conspiracy theory. And I don't know how conspiracy this was or how much of a theory it was, but they were saying that, Epstein was involved heavily in the human trafficking to where Wayfair, there was, some young girls missing throughout the past few decades where after a girl goes missing, Wayfair will technically have a furniture piece with the young girl's name at a listed price of, $10,000, $12,000, $8,000. where the pieces of furniture were sold. There's receipts of that. A lot purchased by Jeffrey Epstein's assistant, as far as possibly tracking. And those same items that were listed, you could go back on there now and see them down for like, regular price, $200, $300, to where they were using the internet and Wayfair as a way, which is a furniture company, as
I
a way
know.
to sell humans. To see that, just give me your thoughts on possibly that level of execution when it comes to human trafficking.
I mean, the truth is when it comes to that that business, because it is a business, it's a huge business. None of us are really prepared to have that conversation. I've sat here with y'all already and I've talked to y'all about girls getting moved around on tours and tour buses, girls getting moved around on video shoots. There's 80 trillion ways to sell a human being. The question is why is it so hard to believe that any of that stuff could be possible?
Why are y'all having so many kits of 23andMe DNA sample tests or whatever you want to call it? Were y'all using this for the ones who were trafficked? Or what was really going on? Or was that a disguise for 30 plus little ones is about to pull up to Jeffrey's crib? I don't know. It's it's interesting. It's interesting. Check it out.
I'll tell you why this matters, okay? So we invaded, as I mentioned yesterday, mid 2003, and we extracted Gilgamesh's tomb, roughly 2 years later. Well, in 2005, the now bankrupt company, 23andMe, came together where people began sending in those DNA kits to figure out their ancestry. I want you to park that in your mind as we revisit our military's strange efforts in the Middle East. I mentioned to you guys this man named Rob Skiba yesterday. He wrote a book entitled Babylon Rising. This came to me from an email tip. It was immediately interesting. Well, this man, it is alleged, was actually murdered for some of the research and the pieces that he were putting together because he was perhaps getting too close to the ultimate project of the elites. By the way, his son emailed me yesterday thanking me for bringing up his father and grateful that his father's work is still carrying on. I've not had time to email him back, but I did receive that email and I know that you are watching. And I'm also grateful that the work that your father did is getting new meaning. Anyway, I started watching this speech that his father, Rob Skiba, gave on the topic of his book, Babylon Rising. I explained to you that all of the elites are obsessed with Babylon, and any research that I do, it's all about Babylon, Babylon, Babylon. And I want to share to you some of these clips. It's Rob Skiba, and he's speaking about his book. Now, to tee this up, let's just get into a little bit of the history. He is positing a lot about the Tower of Babel. Obviously, we know this was built up, that this angered God. And Rob Skiba posits that it wasn't actually the height of the tower that was problematic. He believes that, or this is a theory, so don't be offended. Please don't send me emails about, whoa, this is not the teaching, this is not the doctrine. We're trying to not get to what is true or what you believe. We are trying to actually get to what the elites believe. Okay, we actually don't believe we should harm children. So if we're speaking about the elite's belief, you don't have to send me a lecture about what's wrong about it. The entire purpose of this podcast is to tell you that the elites are satanic. Anyway, back to Nimrod building this Tower of Babel. Well, Rob Skiba posits, he's like, I don't think it was because the tower was high. We know that he built this to get back to heaven. He thinks that actually this tower that was being built was a technology because they wanted to get back into the heavenly realm. Now, if you have read Gilgamesh, there is a lot of astrotheology that's in it. Stargates. We know that the elites worship stars. We've covered that extensively. Well, in this particular clip, you're going to see Rob Skiba discuss the Book of Enoch, the one that I mentioned to you, going back to the beginning, the story of fallen angels. And he brings up something that is of geographical interest. Take a listen.
Extra biblical texts, like the Book of Enoch and others, that go into more detail about what happened in Genesis 6. The Book of Enoch says that 200 fallen angels, a class of angels known as the Watchers, landed in this location right here. This is the center of a mountain range in southern Lebanon known as Mount Hermon. Now keep your eye right there as the camera pulls back and just kind of look at the outline of the topography right there. It's very interesting that it actually forms the shape of a goat. And one of the worst of the fallen angels was one by the name of Azazel. And Azazel is always associated with the goat. And you see that in Leviticus chapter 16. The scapegoat is in reference to Azazel. I find it interesting that the land itself actually kind of looks like a goat head. This gentleman depicted here is David Flynn. He recently passed away, but he turned the world upside down with some of his research, and he was able to figure out that that location is 33.3.
That is actually insane, y'all. Sorry for stopping it right there. We'll go back just a little bit. That is insane.
The land itself actually kind of looks like a goat head. This gentleman depicted here is David Flynn. He recently passed away, but he turned the world upside down with some of his research, and he was able to figure out that that location is 33.33 degrees north by 33.33 degrees east from the Paris prime meridian. Very interesting. What's 1/3 of 100? 33.3333%, right? How interesting that the fallen angels that participated in what I call the Genesis 6 experiment landed on the geographical location that fits their number on the crosshairs of 33.33. Something else David Flynn pointed out is that if you put a little marker there, and you can do this for yourself, that what I showed you there is from Google Earth. I did it for myself to check it out. But you can put a marker there and then draw a line from there to the Paris prime meridian. We go by Greenwich today, but originally it was the Paris was kind of the standard for a long time there. And that is, in the occult, is referred to as the devil's line.
What is a fact is that the elites are obsessed with goat heads, Baal worship. None of this is a conspiracy. Jeffrey Epstein worked for the Rothschilds. You were looking at a picture of the Rothschilds at their surrealist ball. The more research you do, you just sort of see this appearance over and over again of goat heads. Even if you get into Pan worship, Dionysus, all of these, occult, orgiastic cults that they've had since the beginning of time, so to speak. And just to give you guys a biblical recap, I should never assume. I know a lot of people are.
Also makes you think about people being called the GOAT. Athletes who are called the GOAT. Now we may know where that idea or ideology really came from. Now, a quick pause because I thought this would be worth it. Now, obviously, a lot of this stuff is for debate. I mean, you could go back historically with, people who consider themselves scholars and who research a lot of history, especially with the Bible. Nimrod, Tower of Babel, Gilgamesh and Nimrod being exactly the same person. Obviously, Nimrod being a post-flood figure of the Bible, right? A lot of scholars, a lot of people, I mean, if you go back to some ancient texts, which I had to do a good bit of reading just to even, make sure I wasn't confusing anything on this part of the video. A lot of people think they're exactly the same person, aka the first tyrant in the Bible. Both builders of cities, if we're describing them separately, both Mesopotamian figures, right? Because obviously it ties back to the beginning of the video where we were talking about 23andMe. We talked about a little bit of the trafficking, but more than likely the whole 23andMe thing, which they have lawsuits. I don't know if they're still current, but they have lawsuits about selling DNA. So obviously, if 23andMe and Ancestry.com and all of that stuff was semi-started after we invaded Iraq, then obviously they were looking for the bloodline of Nimrod or the bloodline of Gilgamesh. Nimrod being the grandson of Noah in the Bible. So obviously they were looking for that special bloodline, or it was something to do with that Stargate portal that was supposedly found in Iraq. I mean, there's a couple of different theories on this topic. Some of y'all may be able to talk about it and educate others in the comments better than I can. But I thought this picture was insane because the guy, Nimrod, was literally 17 feet tall. I think I read that his shoulders were 5 feet. Like his width from shoulder to shoulder was 5 feet. Dude is gripping a full-grown lion, a male lion with a full mane. So we're talking about a guy who had complete control over everything. Big, giant, 17-foot tall. immortality chasing dude. I don't know what he's holding right here in this hand. I don't know if this is maybe some kind of serpent or something, but this is what he was depicted as. I mean, he's gripping a lion, y'all. A full-blown male lion. That is insane. But, the theories are interesting because it goes back to the whole WikiLeaks thing and Hillary Clinton and the emails about finding Gilgamesh's tomb, or, maybe they're trying to find that DNA so they can, I got a clip for y'all where he's going to talk about it more, where they could create the ultimate weapon, which would have been Nimrod, aka Gilgamesh, or Gilgamesh, aka Nimrod, whichever way you want to put it. And I think Rob Skiba also talked about the Tower of Babel actually being technology and not like a physical structure. You know what I'm saying? The theories are very interesting, and I don't think we quite crack the code on why we actually invaded Iraq. It definitely wasn't for some oil and whatever the hell else they told us back then. This stuff sounds a little bit more believable. Very interesting, y'all. Let's get back into the video. And then I got this clip that goes into this stuff a little bit more. And he also shows that footage that was supposedly of Gilgamesh, like preserved in stasis and all that. I don't know if I believe that's actually him, because there's like gold cardboard inside of the tomb, and I don't think they would have had gold cardboard back then, but who knows? Anyways, check this out.
Does anybody remember back in 2003 when the BBC reported on Gilgamesh's tomb being found? So there was this guy named Jorg Fassbinder who was doing LiDAR in the Mesopotamian area, and he said he found the tomb of Gilgamesh, which is Nimrod from the Bible. Babylon, Tower of Babel, all that. So in the Epic of Gilgamesh, it was said that he was 17 feet tall and he was 2/3 God, 1/3 human, which would make his genome 66.6% Nephilim. Now I want you to imagine for a second the Nephilim, the giants, the mighty men of old, the lowercase g gods, and the children of the Watchers. What if they could somehow rise back up and be reconstituted into a body? Now my theory is, and what I'm going to explain to you, is that could be a record of what is actually happening right now. Now we're talking about Nimrod, who a lot of scholars identify as Gilgamesh of the Sumerian fame. He was also known as Apollo to the Greeks and Osiris to the Egyptians. He was a giant, and in late 2002 leading into 2003, his body was found. And I have the video I'm going to show you. It was found by Jorge Fassbinder under the Euphrates River. And in the Epic of Gilgamesh, it says he was buried under the Euphrates River. Okay, so guess when we invaded Iraq? 2003. Now there was a special operations general who validated that they do have Gilgamesh's remains. His body is in a remarkable, crazy state of preservation. Okay, now what if the whole point of invading Iraq was to extract his DNA? I'm telling you right now, the Human Genome Project's mission is to extract specific DNA markers to help reconstitute and reanimate old gods of old back into a body. The disembodied spirits to be reanimated into their host body. Something interesting is that 23andMe started their genetic testing enterprise very soon after the extraction of Gilgamesh's tomb. When we invaded Iraq, we were not looking for weapons of mass destruction. They were looking for the weapon of mass destruction, Gilgamesh. Now you may think I'm crazy, and that's fine. Call me what you want, but I'm telling you right now, you're wrong. All these Epstein files coming out talking about cloning and people seeing two Epsteins in the same place at one time, them doing child sacrifice to gods to preserve their life longer. It's not that far out there to think this thing.
Now, I've been saying it since we started talking about all this stuff. Those files, this guy on the screen has brought up all kinds of, things you would call, or things normal people who don't get into this stuff would call conspiracies. The real reason we invaded Iraq. Those files are bringing back everything this is not me just randomly doing the video. Obviously, I'm reacting to Candace Owens talking about it as well, but it's just crazy. A lot of this stuff is coming back to the forefront. And it goes to show you something like that will dig up a lot more. It will connect a lot more dots that you didn't really see in the first place. Or, you know, no one would think that this Epstein stuff would have us talking about, Iraq and 23andMe. It's like, who would have made that connection? But it makes sense because it's all in those emails. And you'd have to ask yourself, why is this stuff in those emails? Why do they want us to see that? That's the connection. The connection comes from the kits of 23andMe, supposed kits that they were sending back and forth and talking about in the emails. And then it just brings up an entirely different topic. It's just crazy how this stuff has us, going back and looking at things that a lot of us probably haven't thought about in a while, and just unearthing stuff that, you know, most people don't even really know anything about. Very, very interesting stuff. There's a lot more to the whole Gilgamesh theory, but I just wanted to get on here and kind of talk about some of the stuff that was current with it, especially the 23andMe thing. I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all will have your own opinions about that as well. And I think that lawsuit was for them having a data breach or selling or being accused of, the data breach of over like 1 million DNA profiles or something like that. I saw it on an article I was reading, but very interesting stuff, y'all. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this one. Y'all already know what's going on, man. We'll be back with another video tomorrow. That being said, it's Black Balloon, and I'm going to see y'all soon, all right?